7-year-old Marina had always been the most curious member of Captain Blackwater's crew. While the other pirates searched the coastline for easy targets, she wandered into the dense jungle of Serpent's Isle, drawn by strange stone carvings barely visible through the twisted vines. Deep in the shadows of ancient trees, she discovered a crumbling temple that seemed forgotten by time itself. Inside the ruins sat a scarred brown dog, thin and alone, watching over empty chambers with the loyalty of a devoted guardian. Marina approached slowly, offering him pieces of dried fish from her pocket. The dog's tail wagged cautiously as he accepted her kindness, and something in his intelligent eyes suggested he had been waiting for someone exactly like her. But what secret was this faithful creature protecting in the depths of the forgotten temple, and why had he chosen to trust a little pirate girl? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Marina had been aboard the Sea Serpent since she was 5 years old, rescued from a burning merchant vessel by Captain Blackwater himself. The gruff captain, with his weathered face and silver beard, had taken one look at the frightened child clinging to a piece of driftwood and declared her the newest member of his crew. "A ship needs all kinds of souls," he had said, wrapping her in his own coat, "and this one's got the spark of adventure in her eyes." Now, 2 years later, Marina was as much a part of the Sea Serpent as the main mast itself. She knew every rope, every plank, every secret hiding place in the ship's belly. Her small size allowed her to squeeze into spaces where grown pirates couldn't go, making her invaluable for repairs and maintenance. But what truly set Marina apart was her insatiable curiosity about the world beyond the ship's rail. First mate Torres, a kind-hearted giant of a man with arms covered in nautical tattoos, had become like a father to her. He taught her to read the stars, tie proper knots, and most importantly, to document her observations in what she called her treasure map journal. The handmade book, bound in leather and filled with her careful sketches and notes, went everywhere with her. "Every island tells a story, little one," Torres would say, watching her draw the coastlines they passed. "But you have to know how to listen." The other crew members had grown fond of Marina as well, though they expressed it in typically pirate fashion. Grumpy old Pete complained constantly about having a child aboard, but always saved the best portions of his cooking for her. Sea Dog Sam taught her to climb the rigging faster than most grown sailors. Even Jenny Sharptooth Martinez, the crew's fiercest fighter, had shown Marina how to defend herself with a small wooden sword. Captain Blackwater ran his ship with fair but firm discipline. Unlike many pirate captains, he preferred to avoid unnecessary violence, focusing instead on outsmarting merchant vessels and corrupt officials. "A clever pirate lives longer than a brutal one," he often said. This philosophy had made the Sea Serpent one of the most successful ships in the Caribbean, and Marina had learned to appreciate the art of strategy over brute force. When they reached Serpent's Isle that morning, the crew immediately began their usual routine of scouting for valuable cargo or information about other ships in the area. The island was known among pirates as a useful stopping point: fresh water, tropical fruits, and a hidden cove that provided excellent cover from naval patrols. "Marina, you stay close to the ship," Captain Blackwater had ordered as the crew prepared to explore. This island's got more than its share of dangerous creatures, but Marina's treasure map journal was practically buzzing with excitement. From the ship's deck, she could see strange stone formations jutting up through the jungle canopy. These weren't natural rock formations. They were too geometric, too purposeful. Someone had built something significant on this island, and her curiosity was stronger than her sense of caution. While Torres led a group to gather fresh water and Pete went hunting for wild boar, Marina slipped away from the beach camp. She told herself she would only explore for a few minutes, just long enough to sketch the mysterious stones she had spotted from the ship. The jungle was unlike anything she had experienced before. Massive trees created a canopy so thick that only scattered beams of sunlight reached the ground. Exotic birds called from hidden perches, and the air was heavy with the scent of blooming flowers and rich earth. Marina carefully documented everything in her journal, sketching unusual plants and noting the calls of different animals. It was the stone carvings that finally led her to the temple. They appeared gradually at first, small symbols carved into tree trunks and boulders, almost like a trail of breadcrumbs leading deeper into the jungle. The symbols were unlike anything Marina had seen before, featuring intricate patterns of waves, ships, and celestial bodies. As she followed the carved trail, the symbols became larger and more elaborate. Soon she found herself standing before a structure that took her breath away. The temple rose from the jungle floor like something from a fairy tale, its stone walls covered in the same mysterious carvings that had led her here. Despite its obvious age, the temple maintained an aura of dignity and purpose. Vines had claimed much of the structure, but they seemed to embrace rather than destroy it. The main entrance was partially obscured by hanging moss, creating a natural curtain that invited exploration while promising mystery. Marina approached the entrance slowly, her heart pounding with excitement and a healthy dose of fear. This was exactly the kind of discovery she had dreamed about since joining the crew, a genuine adventure that was hers alone to claim. The interior of the temple was cooler than the humid jungle outside, and Marina's eyes needed a moment to adjust to the dim light filtering through cracks in the ancient stone ceiling. When her vision cleared, she gasped at what she saw. The scarred brown dog sat perfectly still in the center of the main chamber, as if he had been waiting for her arrival. He was larger than she had first thought, probably weighing as much as she did, with intelligent amber eyes that seemed to study her with the same curiosity she felt toward him. His fur was a rich chocolate brown, but patches of lighter skin showed through where old wounds had healed, telling the story of a hard life survived through determination and courage. "Hello there," Marina whispered, slowly lowering herself to sit cross-legged on the stone floor. "I'm Marina. What's your name?" The dog's ears perked up at the sound of her voice, but he remained cautiously alert. Marina noticed that despite his obvious weariness, his tail gave the slightest wag, just enough to suggest that he was pleased to have company after what must have been a very long time alone. She pulled the dried fish from her pocket, the same treats that Pete always saved for her from his cooking. "Are you hungry? You look like you could use a good meal." At the sight of food, the dog's composure broke slightly. His nose twitched, and Marina could see the careful calculation in his eyes as he weighed hunger against the risk of trusting a stranger. Slowly, deliberately, she placed a piece of fish on the ground between them, and then scooted back to give him space. The dog approached with measured steps, never taking his eyes off Marina. When he reached the fish, he sniffed it thoroughly before taking it gently in his mouth. As he chewed, Marina could see his whole body relax slightly, as if this small act of kindness had reminded him that not all humans were to be feared. "There's a good boy," Marina said softly, placing another piece of fish on the ground. "You've been taking care of this place all by yourself, haven't you?" As the dog ate the second piece of fish, Marina began to examine her surroundings more carefully. The temple chamber was larger than it had appeared from outside, with several doorways leading to other rooms. The walls were covered in the same intricate carvings she had followed through the jungle, but here they were more elaborate and better preserved. What caught her attention most, however, was the worn leather collar around the dog's neck. It was old and weathered, but she could make out what appeared to be engravings in the leather. The collar was too faded for her to read clearly in the dim light, but it was obvious that this dog had once belonged to someone who cared enough to have a custom collar made. "You weren't always alone, were you?" Marina said, offering a third piece of fish. This time the dog came closer, allowing her to extend her hand slowly toward him. When he didn't pull away, she gently scratched behind his ears, feeling the warmth of trust beginning to build between them. "I think I'll call you Guardian," she said, noting how his eyes constantly swept the chamber as if he were still on duty, still protecting something important. "You've been guarding this place, haven't you? Waiting for someone to come back." Guardian seemed to approve of his new name, settling down near Marina, but maintaining his alert posture. As they sat together in the peaceful quiet of the temple, Marina began to feel the weight of responsibility that Guardian had been carrying. This wasn't just an abandoned building, it was a sacred trust that he had been maintaining through sheer loyalty and determination. She opened her treasure map journal and began sketching Guardian and the temple chamber, wanting to capture every detail of this magical moment. As she drew, she noticed that Guardian was watching her with intense interest, as if he understood the importance of documenting their meeting. "You're very smart, aren't you?" Marina said, showing him the sketch. "I bet you know all kinds of secrets about this place." Guardian stood and walked to one of the doorways leading deeper into the temple. He looked back at Marina, then at the doorway, then back at Marina again. The message was clear, there was more to see, and he was willing to show her. Marina carefully closed her journal and stood up, her heart racing with excitement. She had come to the temple hoping to find interesting carvings to document, but instead she had found something far more valuable, a friend who had been waiting for someone exactly like her to arrive. "Lead the way, Guardian," she said, following him toward the dark passage. "Let's see what you've been protecting all this time." Guardian led Marina through a series of chambers, each one revealing more of the temple's mysterious past. The rooms were connected by short corridors carved directly into the stone, and Marina marveled at the craftsmanship that had created such a complex structure. Footsteps echoed softly in the empty spaces, but Guardian moved with complete silence, his paws finding purchase on the ancient stones as if he had walked these paths countless times before. In the third chamber they explored, Marina discovered evidence that someone had lived in the temple relatively recently. A simple wooden table sat against one wall, its surface worn smooth by use. Beside it, a stone shelf held the remnants of what had once been supplies, empty pottery vessels, scraps of cloth, and the rusted remains of metal tools. "Someone made this place their home," Marina said, running her fingers along the table's edge. "Was it your person, Guardian? Did they take care of you here?" Guardian's response was immediate and emotional. He walked to the table and placed his front paws on its surface, looking up at Marina with eyes that seemed to hold years of grief and loyalty. Then he moved to a corner of the room where a simple bed of woven palm fronds had long since dried and crumbled. He lay down in the exact spot where the bed had been, resting his head on his paws in a gesture that spoke of countless nights spent waiting for someone's return. Marina felt tears prick her eyes as she understood the depth of Guardian's devotion. Whoever had lived here had earned the complete loyalty of this remarkable dog, and Guardian had remained faithful even after they were gone. She knelt beside him and gently stroked his fur, offering what comfort she could. "They must have loved you very much," she whispered. "And you loved them too. That's why you stayed, isn't it? You're still waiting for them to come home." As they continued exploring, Marina began to piece together more of the story. The temple had clearly been built by an ancient civilization, but someone much more recent had converted parts of it into a living space. The combination of ancient stonework and practical modifications suggested that whoever had lived here was both respectful of the temple's history and skilled at adapting it for their needs. It was in the fifth chamber that Guardian's behavior changed dramatically. He had been moving with steady purpose through the other rooms, but here he stopped abruptly and began to pace. His ears were alert, and his tail was rigid with tension. Marina watched him carefully, trying to understand what had captured his attention. The chamber appeared empty except for more of the intricate wall carvings, but Guardian kept returning to one particular section of the wall. The stone surface was covered with thick vines, just like most of the temple's exterior, but Guardian seemed convinced that something important lay hidden beneath the green curtain. "What is it, boy?" Marina asked, following his gaze to the vine-covered wall. "Do you see something I don't?" Guardian began pawing at a specific section of the vines, his movements becoming more urgent. Marina joined him, carefully pulling away the thick vegetation to reveal the stone underneath. What she found made her gasp in amazement. Embedded in the wall was a crystal compass unlike anything she had ever seen. The crystal was perfectly clear and about the size of her palm, held in place by an intricate bronze mounting that matched the style of the temple's other decoration. But what made the compass truly extraordinary was that it seemed to be waiting for something or someone to activate it. "Guardian, how did you know this was here?" Marina asked, but even as she spoke, she began to understand. Guardian approached the crystal compass and stood directly in front of it, and immediately the crystal began to emit a soft, warm glow. The light pulsed gently like a heartbeat, and Marina could see that the compass needle was pointing not north, but toward another section of the wall. Guardian looked at Marina expectantly, then back at the compass, then at the wall where the needle pointed. "It's showing us something, isn't it?" Marina said, her voice filled with wonder. "You've been waiting for someone who could help you use." Guardian's tail wagged for the first time since they had met, and Marina realized that this moment was what he had been hoping for during all his lonely vigil. The crystal compass required both of them, Guardian to activate it, and Marina to understand its message. Following the compass needle's direction, Marina examined the wall where it pointed. Hidden beneath another layer of vines, she found what appeared to be a seam in the stone, as if a section of the wall was designed to move. Marina pressed against the seam in the wall, and to her amazement, the stone panel shifted inward with a deep grinding sound that echoed through the chamber. Cool air rushed out from the opening, carrying with it a scent that was different from the jungle humidity above, older, more mysterious, tinged with something that made her think of deep caves and hidden secrets. Guardian immediately moved toward the opening, his body language expressing both excitement and purpose. The hidden passage revealed a set of stone steps leading down into darkness, carved with the same precision as the rest of the temple, but clearly designed to be concealed from casual discovery.
"We're really going down there?"
Marina whispered, though she already knew the answer. Guardian was already descending the first few steps, pausing only to look back and ensure she was following. Marina pulled out the small lantern that Torres had taught her to always carry, lighting it with the flint and steel that every good pirate kept handy. The warm glow of the flame pushed back the darkness, revealing that the stairway was longer than she had expected, curving gently as it descended into the heart of the island. As they went deeper, Marina began to notice something extraordinary. The walls of the passage were lined with clusters of mushrooms that glowed with a soft, ethereal light. The bioluminescent fungi created an otherworldly atmosphere, bathing everything in shades of blue and green that seemed to pulse gently with their own rhythm. "It's like walking through a fairy tale," Marina breathed, pausing to sketch the glowing mushrooms in her journal. The light they provided was surprisingly bright, and she found she could see quite well even without her lantern. Guardian seemed completely at ease in this underground world, confirming Marina's growing suspicion that he had been here many times before. His confidence gave her courage as they descended deeper into the passage system, which was revealing itself to be far more extensive than anything visible from the temple above. The walls were covered with murals that told a story Marina was only beginning to understand. The paintings depicted ships and sailors, storms and battles, and always, in the center of the most important scenes, a man with a magnificent beard standing beside a dog that looked remarkably similar to Guardian. "That's you, isn't it?" Marina said, pointing to one of the paintings, "or someone who looked just like you." "These pictures are old, Guardian. Very old." The murals showed the bearded man burying something in a chamber deep underground, with his faithful dog standing guard. Other paintings depicted the same man saying farewell to the dog, as if he were leaving on a journey from which he might not return. Marina was so absorbed in studying the murals that she almost missed the moment when Guardian stopped walking. They had reached a small chamber, and scattered across the stone floor were dozens of gold coins, glinting in the mushroom light like fallen stars. "Gold," Marina whispered, kneeling to pick up one of the coins. It was heavier than she expected, and clearly very old. The coin bore the image of a ship on one side, and a symbol she didn't recognize on the other. Guardian sat patiently as Marina examined the coins, his demeanor suggesting that this discovery, while significant, was still just the beginning of what he had to show her. There were perhaps 50 coins scattered around the chamber, more wealth than most pirates saw in a year of raiding, but Guardian's calm attitude made it clear that this was merely a preview of what lay ahead. Marina carefully gathered several of the coins, placing them in her pocket as evidence of their discovery. She made detailed notes in her journal, documenting the location and her estimates of the coin's age and origin. Torres had taught her that proper documentation was essential for any significant find. "There's more, isn't there?" Marina asked Guardian, who responded by standing and moving toward another passage that led even deeper into the underground complex. As they continued their descent, Marina began to understand the true scope of what Guardian had been protecting. This wasn't just a hiding place, it was an entire underground network of chambers and passages, carefully constructed and designed to keep something of immense value safe from discovery. The deeper they went, the more elaborate the construction became. The walls were smoother, the passages wider, and the glowing mushrooms more abundant. Marina had the distinct feeling that they were approaching something monumentally important, something that would change everything she thought she knew about treasure and adventure. Guardian led Marina into a chamber that made her gasp in wonder. Unlike the rough stone passages they had been traversing, this room was perfectly carved and polished, with walls that reflected the mushroom light like mirrors. In the center of the chamber, sitting on a pedestal of black marble, was a golden chalice that seemed to glow with its own inner fire. The chalice was the most beautiful thing Marina had ever seen. It was covered in intricate engravings that depicted sailing ships, sea creatures, and symbols that matched those in the murals above. Precious stones were embedded around the rim, emeralds, rubies, and sapphires that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. "Oh, Guardian," Marina whispered, approaching the pedestal slowly. "It's magnificent." But even as she marveled at the chalice, Marina's practical pirate training was assessing the broader situation. If this beautiful cup was sitting openly in its own chamber, it meant one of two things. Either it was the extent of the treasure, or it was just the beginning of something much larger. Guardian's behavior suggested the latter. While Marina examined the chalice, he moved around the chamber's perimeter, sniffing at the walls and occasionally pawing at specific stones. His actions reminded Marina of the way he had found the crystal compass, and she began to suspect that this room held more secrets than were immediately apparent. As she studied the chalice more closely, Marina noticed that its base was inscribed with words in what appeared to be several different languages. She could make out some Spanish, which Torres had been teaching her, and what might have been English, though the script was old and difficult to read. "Property of Captain." Marina squinted at the inscription, trying to make out the faded letters. "Captain Gold something. Goldbeard? Guardian. Did this belong to Captain Goldbeard?" At the mention of that name, Guardian's entire demeanor changed. His ears perked up, his tail began wagging furiously, and he ran to Marina's side, pressing against her leg as if the name had awakened powerful memories. "Captain Goldbeard was your person, wasn't he?" Marina said, kneeling to hug Guardian. "He's the one who lived in the temple. He's the one you've been waiting for." Guardian's response was a soft whimper that spoke of years of loyalty and grief. Marina understood now why he had remained at the temple for so long, and why he had been so careful about trusting her. He had been keeping faith with someone who was never coming home. But as she held Guardian and felt the weight of his devotion, Marina also began to understand something else. Captain Goldbeard hadn't just hidden a single treasure and left his dog to guard it. He had created an elaborate system, with Guardian as the key to unlocking its secrets. The crystal compass, the hidden passages, the scattered gold coins, they were all part of a larger plan. "He trained you, didn't he?" Marina said, looking into Guardian's intelligent eyes. "He taught you how to find all the hiding places. That's why you need someone to help you, someone who can read the clues and follow the map he left behind." Marina carefully lifted the chalice from its pedestal, surprised by how heavy it was. The workmanship was extraordinary, clearly the product of master craftsmen and worth a fortune by itself. But as she held it, she noticed something else. The pedestal wasn't solid. There was a small compartment underneath, revealed now that the chalice had been removed. Inside the compartment was a piece of parchment, carefully wrapped in oiled cloth to protect it from moisture. Marina's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the document, revealing a hand-drawn map marked with symbols and notations in the same style as the temple carvings. "Guardian, look at this," Marina said, spreading the map on the floor where they could both examine it. "It's a treasure map, but not like any I've ever seen. These markings show the temple, and these passages, and, oh my goodness." The map revealed that what they had discovered so far was only a small portion of Captain Goldbeard's hidden treasure. The underground chamber system was vast, with multiple storage areas marked throughout the network. Some chambers were marked with symbols indicating gold, others showed gems, and still others bore markings that Marina couldn't interpret, but that filled her with excitement. "We have to go back," Marina said, carefully folding the map and tucking it into her journal. "We have to tell Captain Blackwater and the crew. This is bigger than anything they've ever imagined." Guardian seemed to understand her words, but his expression was conflicted. Marina realized that for years he had been the sole protector of this secret, and trusting others, even her, was difficult after so much solitary vigilance. "I promise they're good pirates," Marina assured him. "They'll help us honor Captain Goldbeard's memory and make sure his treasure is treated with respect." Marina and Guardian emerged from the temple to find the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the jungle floor. The normal sounds of the forest seemed almost jarring after the mystical quiet of the underground chambers, and Marina had to blink several times to readjust to the bright natural light. As they made their way back through the jungle toward the beach, Marina's mind raced with plans for how to convince the crew to take her discovery seriously. Pirates were naturally skeptical people, especially when it came to treasure claims that seemed too good to be true. She would need solid evidence to support her story. The sound of angry voices reached them before they saw the beach camp. Marina quickened her pace, Guardian keeping close beside her as they approached the clearing where Captain Blackwater had established their temporary base. "Where in blazes has that girl gotten to?" Captain Blackwater was saying, his voice carrying the edge of worry that he tried to hide behind stern authority. "I told her to stay near the ship." "She's probably just exploring, Captain," Torres replied, though Marina could hear the concern in his voice as well. "You know how curious she gets about new places." "Curious enough to get herself eaten by whatever lives in that jungle," Jenny Sharptooth added grimly. "We should have started searching for her an hour ago." Marina stepped into the clearing, Guardian at her side, and all conversation stopped. The entire crew, 8 seasoned pirates who had faced storms, battles, and countless dangers, stood frozen, staring at the large brown dog, who watched them with calm, intelligent eyes. "Marina," Torres exclaimed, relief flooding his voice. "Thank goodness you're safe. Where have you been? And what in Neptune's name is that?" Captain Blackwater demanded, pointing at Guardian. "This is Guardian," Marina said, placing a protective hand on the dog's head. "And Captain, I've found something incredible, something that's going to change everything." She reached into her pocket and pulled out one of the ancient gold doubloons she had collected from the underground chamber. The coin caught the sunlight and gleamed with unmistakable authenticity, causing several crew members to intake sharply. "Where did you get that?" Captain Blackwater asked, his tone shifting from anger to intense interest. "From the treasure of Captain Goldbeard," Marina replied, enjoying the stunned silence that followed her words. "Captain Goldbeard is a legend." Old Pete scoffed, though his eyes remained fixed on the golden coin. "A story told in taverns to impress foolish landlubbers." "Guardian belonged to Captain Goldbeard," Marina continued, undeterred by Pete's skepticism. "He's been guarding the treasure for years, waiting for someone who could help him access all the hiding places." She held up the doubloon so everyone could see it clearly. The coin bore the unmistakable mark of the legendary pirate, a ship's wheel surrounded by a golden beard, exactly as described in the stories that every pirate knew by heart. "Let me see that," Captain Blackwater said, extending his hand. Marina placed the coin in his palm, watching as he examined it with the practiced eye of someone who had handled countless pieces of treasure over the years. "The weight is right," he murmured, testing the coin's heft. "The craftsmanship is genuine, And this marking, he traced the golden beard symbol with his finger. This is either the real thing or the finest forgery I've ever seen. It's real, Captain, Marina said earnestly. Guardian showed me where Captain Goldbeard hid his treasure. There are chambers full of gold and jewels, more than we could carry in 10 ships. Jenny Sharptooth snorted derisively. A little girl and a stray dog, finding the greatest treasure in pirate history. Captain, surely you don't believe. I believe this coin is genuine. Captain Blackwater interrupted, his voice carrying the authority that had made him a respected leader among pirates. And I believe Marina is telling the truth about where she found it. Torres stepped forward, studying Guardian with the keen observation skills that had made him an excellent first mate. This isn't an ordinary dog, Captain. Look at his bearing, his alertness. He's been trained for something specific. Guardian knows where all the treasure chambers are located, Marina explained, but he needs someone who can read maps and understand the clues that Captain Goldbeard left behind. That's why he's been waiting at the temple. What kind of clues? Captain Blackwater asked. Marina opened her journal and carefully removed the map she had found beneath the golden chalice. As she unfolded it, the crew gathered around, their skepticism giving way to amazement as they saw the detailed drawings and markings that clearly indicated an extensive treasure network. This shows the underground chambers, Marina explained, pointing to different sections of the map. Each symbol represents a different type of treasure, and Guardian knows how to find them all. The expedition into the temple began at dawn, with every member of Captain Blackwater's crew equipped with lanterns, rope, and the kind of excitement that came from the possibility of discovering legendary treasure. Guardian led the procession with quiet dignity, occasionally looking back to ensure the group was following properly. "Stay close together," Captain Blackwater ordered as they entered the temple's main chamber. "We don't know what dangers might be lurking in those passages. The only danger down there is getting lost in all the treasure," Marina said confidently, though she stayed close to Torres as they descended into the underground network. The crew's oil lanterns cast dancing shadows on the passage walls, creating an atmosphere of mystery and adventure that had every pirate's heart racing. As they descended deeper, the glowing mushrooms began to supplement their artificial light, causing several crew members to gasp in amazement. "I've never seen anything like this," Sea Dog Sam whispered, reaching out to touch one of the luminescent fungi. "It's like walking through a dream." Guardian moved through the passages with complete confidence, leading them past chambers they had not explored during their initial visit. Marina realized that during their first expedition, she and Guardian had only scratched the surface of the underground complex. The first major treasure chamber they entered left the entire crew speechless. Torres held his lantern high, illuminating walls lined with chests, barrels, and individual items that gleamed with the unmistakable luster of precious metals and gems. "Saints preserve us," old Pete breathed, his usual grumpy demeanor replaced by pure wonder. "It's all real." Captain Blackwater approached one of the open chests, his experienced eye immediately recognizing the quality and authenticity of its contents. Gold coins filled the container to the brim, but these weren't random pieces stolen from various sources. Every coin bore the same marking, the ship's wheel and golden beard, that identified them as Captain Goldbeard's personal treasure. "This represents years of successful piracy," Captain Blackwater said, running a handful of coins through his fingers. Captain Goldbeard wasn't just any pirate, he was the most successful treasure hunter in the history of the Caribbean. Jenny Sharptooth, who had been the most skeptical about Marina's claims, stood transfixed before a display of jeweled daggers. Each weapon was a work of art, with handles encrusted with emeralds and rubies, blades that gleamed like silver mirrors, and craftsmanship that spoke of royal workshops and master artisans. "These belong in a king's treasury," she murmured, though she was careful not to touch anything without permission. Guardian watched the crew's reactions with what Marina could only describe as satisfaction. After years of solitary guardianship, he seemed pleased to finally have witnesses to the magnificence of what he had been protecting. Torres discovered that many of the larger chests contained not just treasure, but also documents carefully preserved in oiled cloth. Maps, ship manifests, and detailed records of Captain Goldbeard's expeditions revealed that he had been far more than a simple pirate. He was an explorer, a scholar, and a master strategist who had spent decades accumulating not just wealth, but knowledge. "Look at this," Torres called, holding up a leather-bound journal. Captain Goldbeard documented every treasure he found, every ship he captured, every secret he discovered. This is the record of the greatest pirate career in history. As they moved from chamber to chamber, the scope of the treasure continued to astound them. One room contained nothing but Spanish silver, another held Portuguese gold, and a third was filled with artifacts from ancient civilizations that Captain Goldbeard had apparently discovered during his travels. But it was in the largest chamber that they found the true centerpiece of the collection. The room was enormous, with a vaulted ceiling that disappeared into shadows above their lantern light. In the center stood a massive chest, larger than any they had seen, made from dark wood reinforced with bands of gold. "That's Captain Goldbeard's personal treasure chest," Marina said, recognizing it from the murals they had seen earlier. "Guardian, is this what you've been protecting most carefully?" Guardian approached the chest and sat beside it, his posture formal and ceremonial. Marina understood that this moment was the culmination of everything Guardian had been working toward, the proper presentation of his master's greatest treasure to worthy inheritors. Captain Blackwater approached the chest reverently, understanding the significance of the moment. As he lifted the heavy lid, golden light seemed to pour out, reflecting from countless surfaces within. The chest contained not just treasure, but also personal items that told the story of Captain Goldbeard's extraordinary life. "His logbooks," Torres said softly, lifting out a collection of beautifully bound volumes, maps of secret islands, navigation tools I've never seen before. The celebration in the treasure chamber was interrupted by Sea Dog Sam's urgent voice echoing down from the temple entrance above. Captain Blackwater. Ships approaching the island." Captain Blackwater's expression immediately shifted from wonder to concern. "How many ships, Sam?" "3 vessels, flying the crimson flag," came the reply. "It's Captain Scarface and the Crimson Tide." The atmosphere in the chamber changed instantly. Every pirate knew the reputation of Captain Scarface Martinez, a ruthless buccaneer who had built his career on stealing from other pirates, rather than honest merchant raiding. His ship, the Blood Revenge, was feared throughout the Caribbean for its brutal crew and its captain's complete lack of honor. "Everyone out of the chamber now," Captain Blackwater ordered. "Torres, get that spyglass and give me a proper count of their forces." As the crew rushed toward the surface, Marina grabbed Guardian's collar gently. "We need to hide the treasure," she whispered urgently. "If Captain Scarface finds it, he'll take everything and probably hurt Guardian too." Guardian seemed to understand the danger immediately. As the crew reached the temple's main chamber, he began moving around the room in a pattern that Marina recognized from their earlier explorations. He was looking for ways to conceal the entrance to the underground passages. Torres returned from his reconnaissance with troubling news. The spyglass had revealed not just Captain Scarface's flagship, but 2 additional vessels filled with armed pirates. "At least 60 men, Captain. Maybe more. They're landing boats on the North Beach." "They must have been following us," Jenny Sharptooth said grimly. "Scarface has been tracking successful crews for months, waiting for someone to lead him to a major score." Captain Blackwater studied the situation with the tactical mind that had kept his crew alive through countless dangerous encounters. "They'll have scouts moving through the jungle within the hour. If they find this temple," Captain Marina interrupted, an idea forming in her mind. "Guardian knows secret passages through the underground chambers. We could use the temple's layout as a defensive advantage." "A child's strategy against Captain Scarface?" Old Pete scoffed, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Listen to her, Pete," Torres said firmly. "Marina and Guardian have shown us more in one day than we've discovered in years of piracy. If they say the temple can help us, we should listen." Guardian had been moving systematically around the main chamber, and now he approached a section of wall that looked identical to all the others. With his nose he pushed against a specific stone, and Marina heard the familiar grinding sound of hidden mechanisms activating. A panel in the wall slid aside, revealing a passage that led in a completely different direction from the treasure chambers. Guardian looked at Marina meaningfully, then at the hidden passage, then back at Marina. "He's showing us escape routes," Marina realized. "Guardian, there are other ways out of the temple, aren't there?" Guardian's tail wagged once, confirming her suspicion. Captain Goldbeard had designed his hideout with multiple entrances and exits, preparing for exactly this kind of situation. "Torres, take half the crew and start moving our most valuable supplies through that passage," Captain Blackwater decided quickly. "Marina, can Guardian show us how to access the treasure chambers from different directions?" "I think so," Marina said, though she was beginning to understand that they were asking Guardian to reveal secrets he had protected for years. "Guardian, we need your help to keep Captain Goldbeard's treasure safe from bad pirates." The sound of voices in the jungle was getting closer. Captain Scarface's scouts were moving faster than expected, probably following the same path of stone carvings that had led Marina to the temple originally. "Jenny, Pete, prepare defensive positions at the main entrance," Captain Blackwater ordered. "If Scarface wants this treasure, he's going to have to fight for it properly." Marina knelt beside Guardian, looking into his intelligent eyes. "I know this is hard for you. You've been protecting this place alone for so long. But now you have friends who want to help you keep it safe." Guardian seemed to come to a decision. He moved to another section of the wall and activated a second hidden panel, revealing yet another passage. Then he trotted to a third location and opened a passage there as well. "He's showing us the whole defensive network," Marina breathed. "Captain Goldbeard built this place like a fortress, with Guardian as the key to all its secrets." The sound of approaching voices was now clearly audible from multiple directions. Captain Scarface had surrounded the temple, just as Captain Blackwater had feared. "Positions, everyone," the captain ordered quietly. "And Marina, you and Guardian stay close to me. We're going to need both of you to navigate whatever comes next." The first sign of Captain Scarface's approach was the deliberate breaking of branches and rustling of leaves, sounds meant to intimidate rather than maintain stealth. Marina crouched behind a fallen stone pillar, with Guardian beside her, watching as Captain Blackwater positioned his crew throughout the temple complex. "Ahoy there, Blackwater," came a booming voice from the jungle. "I know you're in that temple, you old sea dog." Captain Scarface emerged from the tree line with theatrical flair, his famous red coat billowing dramatically as he strode into the temple clearing. His face bore the distinctive scar that had earned him his nickname, a jagged line that ran from his left temple to his jaw, the result of a cutlass fight that had become legendary among pirates. Behind him came his crew, a collection of the most ruthless pirates in the Caribbean. Unlike Captain Blackwater's crew, who were rough but honorable, these men had earned their reputations through cruelty and betrayal. "Scarface," Captain Blackwater replied, stepping into view at the temple entrance. "I might have known you'd come sniffing around like a scavenger bird." Now, old friend," Captain Scarface said with mock friendliness. "No need for harsh words. I simply heard rumors that you'd found something interesting on this little island, and I thought I'd come see for myself." Marina watched the exchange with growing tension. She had heard stories about Captain Scarface from the crew, and none of them were pleasant. He was known for taking prisoners rather than granting quarter, for torturing information from captives, and for claiming other pirates' discoveries as his own. Guardian pressed close against Marina's side, his body tense with alertness. She could feel his muscles coiled like springs, ready to react at the first sign of danger. "There's nothing here but old ruins," Captain Blackwater said evenly. "You're wasting your time." Captain Scarface laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the temple walls. "Come now, Blackwater. My sources tell me your little ship girl was seen entering this temple hours ago. Surely she found something worth your attention." At the mention of herself, Marina felt a chill run down her spine. Captain Scarface had been watching them, probably since they arrived at the island. "The girl is curious about old stones and carvings," Captain Blackwater replied. "Nothing that would interest someone of your practical nature." "Then you won't mind if my men and I take a look around," Captain Scarface said, signaling to his crew, "just to satisfy our curiosity." As Scarface's pirates began moving toward the temple entrance, Marina realized they needed to act quickly. She touched Guardian's head gently and whispered, "Can you show me where that bronze bell is? The one from the murals?" Guardian's ears perked up immediately. He understood exactly what she was asking about. Moving silently through the shadows, he led Marina to a section of the temple she hadn't noticed before. A small alcove where an ancient bronze bell hung from carved stone supports. The bell was magnificent, covered in the same intricate designs as the rest of the temple, but clearly designed to be heard across great distances. Marina realized that Captain Goldbeard had installed it as a warning system, a way to coordinate defenses across the island. "Blackwater." Captain Scarface's voice was getting closer. "I'm losing patience. Bring out whatever treasure you found, and I might let you keep a small portion for yourself." Marina looked at Guardian, who seemed to understand what needed to be done. Together, they grasped the bell's rope and pulled with all their strength. The bronze bell's deep, resonant tone rang out across the island like a battle cry. The sound was so powerful that it seemed to shake the very stones of the temple, and Marina could hear it echoing off distant hills and cliffs. The effect on both pirate crews was immediate. Captain Blackwater's men, who had been waiting tensely for orders, suddenly moved with coordinated purpose. They had discussed using the bell as a signal during their hasty planning session, and now they knew the battle was about to begin. Captain Scarface's crew, on the other hand, was caught off guard by the sudden sound. Several pirates instinctively looked around for the source of the warning, momentarily breaking their formation. "Now!" Captain Blackwater shouted, and the temple erupted into action. Torres and Jenny Sharptooth emerged from hidden positions, using the temple's stone pillars and fallen debris as cover. Old Pete and Sea Dog Sam coordinated their movements from the higher ground near the entrance, giving them advantage over the attacking pirate. But Marina realized that the bell had served another purpose beyond signaling their own crew. As its echoes faded across the island, she could hear answering calls from the jungle, the voices of creatures that had been awakened by the sound, adding to the chaos and confusion of the moment. The battle erupted across the temple complex with the fury of a Caribbean storm. Captain Scarface's larger crew had the advantage of numbers, but Captain Blackwater's pirates knew the terrain and fought with the desperation of defenders protecting something precious. Marina and Guardian moved quickly through the chaos, using the secret passages that Guardian knew to avoid the main fighting. But as they navigated through a lesser chamber, Marina spotted something that made her heart leap. A weapons cache that Captain Goldbeard had obviously left for emergencies, exactly like this one. The cache was hidden behind a stone panel that Guardian opened with practiced ease. Inside, Marina found an array of weapons, but what captured her attention immediately was a cutlass unlike any she had ever seen. The blade was perfectly balanced, its steel gleaming like silver water, and the hilt bore the same golden beard symbol that marked all of Captain Goldbeard's possessions. "This was his personal sword," Marina whispered in awe, lifting the legendary weapon. Despite its obvious quality and craftsmanship, the cutlass was lighter than she had expected, as if it had been designed specifically for swift, precise movements rather than brute force. Guardian barked softly, a sound of approval that gave Marina the confidence she needed. If Guardian trusted her with Captain Goldbeard's personal weapon, then she had to be worthy of that trust. The sounds of battle were getting closer, and Marina could hear Captain Blackwater shouting orders to his crew. Through a crack in the stone wall, she could see that the fighting had moved into the temple's main chamber, with both crews using the ancient pillars and fallen stones as cover. "Torres, watch your left flank," Captain Blackwater called out, parrying a cutlass strike from one of Scarface's men. Jenny Sharptooth was fighting like her nickname suggested, her blade work creating a defensive perimeter around Old Pete, who was using his superior knowledge of firearms to provide covering fire for the crew. But Marina could see that Captain Blackwater's crew was gradually being pushed back toward the entrance to the underground chambers. If Captain Scarface's men gained access to those passages, they would discover the treasure, and the advantage of superior numbers would become overwhelming. Guardian, we have to help them, Marina said, gripping the legendary cutlass with determination that surprised her. Captain Goldbeard would want his weapon used to protect his treasure. Guardian seemed to understand both the gravity of the situation and Marina's resolve. Together they emerged from the hidden passage into the main chamber, where the battle was reaching its most intense point. Marina's appearance with the legendary cutlass had an immediate effect on both crews. Captain Blackwater's pirates took heart from seeing their youngest member armed with such an obviously powerful weapon, while several of Captain Scarface's men hesitated, recognizing the golden beard symbol and understanding its significance. "The little pirate girl has Captain Goldbeard's sword," one of Scarface's men shouted, his voice carrying a note of superstitious fear. "It's just a child with an old blade," Captain Scarface snarled, but Marina could see uncertainty in his eyes. Like all pirates, he had grown up hearing stories about Captain Goldbeard's legendary weapons and the supernatural luck they supposedly carried. Marina found herself moving with instincts she didn't know she possessed. The cutlass seemed to guide her movements, and when one of Scarface's pirates lunged toward her, she parried his attack with a precision that astonished everyone watching. Guardian fought beside her with fierce loyalty, his natural agility and intelligence making him a formidable opponent for any pirate who tried to approach Marina. Together, they formed a fighting unit that was greater than the sum of its parts. The tide of battle began to shift, as Marina and Guardian's intervention allowed Captain Blackwater's crew to regroup and coordinate their defense more effectively. Torres used the distraction to outflank two of Scarface's men, while Jenny Sharptooth pressed her attack with renewed vigor. But it was when Marina found herself face to face with Captain Scarface himself that the true test of her courage arrived. The infamous pirate captain approached her with his own cutlass drawn, his scarred face twisted in a mixture of anger and curiosity. "So the stories are true," he said, circling Marina slowly. "Captain Goldbeard's treasure does exist, and his dog has chosen a new master." "Guardian doesn't have a master," Marina replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "He chooses his friends, and he's chosen to protect Captain Goldbeard's legacy from pirates like you." Captain Scarface laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Let's see if that legendary blade can protect you from someone who's been fighting longer than you've been alive. Little girl." The confrontation between Marina and Captain Scarface moved into the deepest chamber of the temple complex, where the greatest of Captain Goldbeard's treasures lay hidden. As they circled each other in the vast underground space, their conflict was illuminated by the ethereal glow of the mushrooms and the flickering light of fallen lanterns. "You have no idea what you're protecting, child," Captain Scarface taunted, his cutlass weaving hypnotic patterns in the air. "That treasure belongs to pirates who are strong enough to take it and keep it. It belongs to pirates who are worthy of it," Marina replied, remembering the lessons about honor and courage that Captain Blackwater had taught her. "Captain Goldbeard didn't hide his treasure so that bullies like you could steal it." Behind Captain Scarface, Marina could see the massive emerald that served as the centerpiece of the treasure collection. The heart of Serpent's Isle sat on its pedestal like a green star, casting its own light throughout the chamber and making everything seem magical and otherworldly. The emerald was larger than Marina's head, perfectly cut and polished, and so clear that she could see reflections dancing in its depths. It was the kind of treasure that appeared in legends and fairy tales, but here it was real, waiting to be claimed by whoever proved worthy of possessing it. Guardian had followed them into the chamber, and Marina could sense his presence nearby, ready to help, but waiting for the right moment. This was her battle to fight, her chance to prove that she was truly Captain Goldbeard's successor and Guardian's chosen partner. Captain Scarface attacked with the skill of decades of experience, his blade moving with deadly precision. But Marina found that Captain Goldbeard's cutlass seemed to anticipate his moves, guiding her parries and ripostes with an almost supernatural awareness. "Impossible," Scarface muttered, as Marina deflected another of his attacks. "You're just a child. You can't have the skill to match me. "I don't need to match you," Marina said, beginning to understand the true nature of the weapon she carried. "I just need to be worthy of the blade I'm holding." The heart of Serpent's Isle seemed to pulse with greater intensity as their battle continued, its green light filling the chamber and reflecting off both their weapons. Marina realized that the emerald wasn't just a treasure, it was somehow connected to the temple itself, to Captain Goldbeard's legacy, and to the test that she was facing. Captain Blackwater appeared at the chamber entrance, having fought his way through the underground passages to reach them. His face showed relief at seeing Marina alive, but also amazement at witnessing her skill with the legendary cutlass. "Scarface," Captain Blackwater called out. "This ends now. Your crew is beaten, your ships are outnumbered, and you're trespassing on sacred ground." "Sacred ground." Captain Scarface laughed harshly, but Marina could see sweat beading on his forehead from their prolonged fight. "It's just another pirate's hiding place, Blackwater. And when I'm done with your ship, girl, I'll deal with you and take everything Goldbeard left behind." But as he spoke, Marina noticed something that gave her hope. The heart of Serpent's Isle was responding to their presence, its light growing brighter and more focused. The emerald seemed to be judging them, evaluating their worthiness based on their actions and intention. "Guardian," Marina called softly, "show him who really belongs here." Guardian stepped into the light cast by the great emerald, and immediately the gem's glow intensified dramatically. The light seemed to emanate not just from the emerald itself, but from Guardian as well, as if the dog and the treasure were connected by bonds that went deeper than simple guardianship. The effect on Captain Scarface was immediate and profound. His confident swagger faltered as he realized that he was facing something beyond ordinary piracy, a legacy that had chosen its inheritors and would not be claimed by force alone. "You see," Marina said, her voice carrying new authority, "this treasure doesn't belong to the strongest or the most ruthless. It belongs to those who understand what Captain Goldbeard really valued: loyalty, courage, and the wisdom to know when fighting is necessary and when it isn't." Captain Scarface made one final desperate attack, putting all his remaining strength behind a strike aimed at Marina's heart. But Captain Goldbeard's cutlass met his blade with perfect timing, and the legendary steel proved superior to his weapon, shattering Scarface's cutlass at the hilt. The infamous pirate captain stood disarmed in the green light of the heart of Serpent's Isle, his reputation and his threat ended by a 7-year-old girl who had proven herself worthy of a legend's trust. In the aftermath of the battle, as Captain Scarface was secured with his remaining crew and the tents grew quiet once more, Marina discovered something that changed everything she thought she knew about Captain Goldbeard's treasure. Hidden behind the pedestal that held the heart of Serpent's Isle was a sealed compartment containing a letter written in the legendary pirate's own hand. The parchment was of the finest quality, protected by oiled leather and wax seals that had kept it perfectly preserved through the years. As Marina carefully unfolded the document, Guardian sat beside her with the reverent attention of someone who recognized the profound importance of the moment. "My dear friend," the letter began, and Marina realized immediately that it was addressed to Guardian himself. "If you are reading this, then you have found someone worthy to share our secret. I write these words, knowing that my time in this world grows short, but confident that you will guard our treasure until the right person arrives to claim it." Captain Blackwater, Torres and the rest of the crew gathered around as Marina read the letter aloud, their voices hushed with respect for the words of the legendary pirate captain. "I have spent my life gathering not just gold and jewels, but knowledge and wisdom from every corner of the Caribbean. This treasure represents more than wealth. It is a legacy of adventure, discovery, and the bonds between true friends. You, my faithful guardian, have been the greatest treasure of all, and I trust you to choose my successor wisely." The letter went on to explain Captain Goldbeard's philosophy about piracy and treasure hunting. Unlike many pirates who sought wealth for its own sake, he had viewed treasure as a means to fund exploration and discovery. His greatest joy had come not from counting gold coins, but from uncovering the secrets of lost civilizations and forgotten islands. The heart of Serpent's Isle, the letter continued, is more than a beautiful gem. It is a key to mysteries that I never had time to explore fully. The island itself holds secrets that date back centuries before any Europeans set foot in these waters. I leave this mystery for whoever proves worthy of Guardian's trust, knowing that they will use this knowledge wisely. Marina looked up at the magnificent emerald with new understanding. The heart of Serpent's Isle wasn't just the centerpiece of a treasure hoard. It was a map, a guide, and a key to discoveries that would make Captain Goldbeard's legendary career seem like just the beginning of a much larger adventure. There's more, Marina said, returning her attention to the letter. He explains why he chose this island, why he trusted Guardian with everything, and why he knew that someday the right person would come along. According to the letter, Captain Goldbeard had discovered Serpent's Isle during a storm that drove his ship far off course. When he explored the island, he found evidence of an ancient civilization that had possessed knowledge of navigation, astronomy, and treasure hunting that surpassed anything known to modern pirates. Guardian was not just my companion, the letter revealed. He was my partner in discovery, blessed with instincts that guided me to treasures I never could have found alone. His loyalty is not mere devotion, it is wisdom, and whoever earns his trust will find themselves capable of adventures beyond their wildest dream. A final portion of the letter contains specific instructions for the new inheritor of Captain Goldbeard's legacy. The treasure was to be shared fairly among all who had proven themselves worthy through their actions. The knowledge and maps were to be used for further exploration and discovery. And most importantly, Guardian was to be treated not as a possession, but as an equal partner in whatever adventures lay ahead. I name as my successor whoever Guardian chooses to trust with our secrets, the letter concluded. May they find the same joy in discovery that has filled my life, and may they always remember that the greatest treasures are the friendships we forge along the way. Farewell, old friend, until we meet again in whatever adventures await beyond this life. I remain your devoted partner, Captain William Goldbeard Harrison. As Marina finished reading, she felt the weight of legacy settling on her shoulder. She had begun this adventure as a curious little girl exploring an interesting temple, but now she was the chosen inheritor of the greatest treasure-hunting partnership in pirate history. Guardian approached her and gently placed his paw on her hand, a gesture that felt like both a welcome and a promise. Captain Blackwater placed his own weathered hand on her shoulder, his eyes bright with pride and amazement. "Well, Marina," he said softly, "it seems you've found more than treasure today. You've found your destiny." The days following the discovery of Captain Goldbeard's letter were filled with careful planning and preparation for departure from Serpent's Isle. True to the letter's instructions, Captain Blackwater ensured that the treasure was distributed fairly among all who had participated in its discovery and defense. Each crew member received enough gold and jewels to secure their future for years to come. But more importantly, they had gained something that couldn't be measured in coins, the knowledge that they had been part of something truly legendary. Even Jenny Sharptooth, usually the most practical member of the crew, seemed moved by the magnitude of their discovery. "I've been pirating for 15 years, she told Marina, as they carefully catalogued the most valuable items. "I've seen treasure ships and raided merchant vessels, but I've never been part of anything like this. This feels like we're writing history instead of just stealing it." Guardian had adapted to life aboard the Sea Serpent with remarkable ease, as if he had always been meant to sail rather than guard a lonely temple. He established himself as the ship's official protector, taking up a position near the helm where he could watch over everything and everyone, with the same devoted attention he had given to Captain Goldbeard's treasure. Marina found herself spending hours each day with Captain Goldbeard's navigational instruments and maps, learning to understand the sophisticated system he had developed for finding hidden treasures and unexplored territories. The knowledge was complex, combining traditional seamanship with insights about ancient civilizations and natural phenomena that she had never encountered before. He wasn't just a pirate, Torres observed, watching Marina work with one of Captain Goldbeard's astronomical calculators. He was a scholar, an explorer, and a natural philosopher all wrapped into one. No wonder his treasure hunting was so successful. To commemorate their extraordinary adventure and Marina's new role as Guardian's partner, Captain Blackwater commissioned the ship's metalworker to create a special bell from some of the gold they had discovered. The new bell was smaller than the bronze warning bell in the temple, but its tone was pure and clear, designed to be heard across great distances. The bell bore engravings that told the story of their adventure: Marina and Guardian meeting in the temple, the discovery of the treasure chambers, the battle with Captain Scarface, and the finding of Captain Goldbeard's letter. When it was installed on the Sea Serpent's mainmast, its first ringing seemed to announce to the world that a new chapter in pirate history had begun. "Every time we hear that bell," Captain Blackwater said during the installation ceremony, "we'll remember that courage and curiosity can lead to discoveries greater than we ever imagined." Marina's official role on the ship had evolved as well. While she remained the crew's most enthusiastic explorer, she was now also their navigator for special expeditions and their expert on ancient treasures and lost civilization. Captain Blackwater had even given her a cabin of her own, though she often chose to sleep on deck under the stars with Guardian beside her. The transformation in Guardian was perhaps the most remarkable of all. The lonely, patient dog who had waited years in the temple had become vibrant and energetic, as if Marina's friendship had reminded him of all the joy that adventure could bring. He seemed younger, more playful, yet he retained the wisdom and instincts that had made him such an effective guardian. "Look at him," old Pete said one evening as Guardian stood at the ship's bow, nose pointed toward the horizon like a living figurehead. "He's not just protecting us, he's leading us toward whatever comes next." As the Sea Serpent sailed away from Serpent's Isle, Marina stood at the stern, watching the island fade into the distance. The temple was invisible from the sea, hidden once again by the jungle canopy, but she knew that Guardian's long vigil there had ended, and a new phase of adventure was beginning. In her cabin, carefully stored in a special chest, were Captain Goldbeard's maps and instruments, the heart of Serpent's Isle, and most precious of all, the letter that had made her the inheritor of a legendary partnership. But the real treasure was standing beside her, a faithful friend who had chosen to trust her with secrets that could unlock mysteries across the entire Caribbean. "Where to next, Guardian?" Marina asked, scratching behind his ears as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Guardian's tail wagged as he looked toward the horizon, his intelligent eyes reflecting the same excitement for discovery that had driven Captain Goldbeard through decades of legendary adventures. Together, they were ready for whatever mysteries the sea would reveal. 3 months after leaving Serpent's Isle, Marina's reputation as a treasure finder had spread throughout the Caribbean pirate community. Word traveled fast among seafaring folk, and stories of the little girl who had discovered Captain Goldbeard's legendary hoard grew more elaborate with each telling. Captain Blackwater had been approached by no fewer than 5 different pirate crews requesting Marina's assistance with their own treasure hunts, and each offer had been more generous than the last. But Marina was selective about which expeditions she agreed to join, insisting that any crew she worked with must share her values of fairness and respect for the historical significance of what they might discover. Her first major expedition as an official treasure hunter took her to the island of Tortuga, where Captain Rodriguez of the Golden Eagle had discovered maps suggesting the location of a Spanish treasure fleet that had been lost in a hurricane over a century earlier. Marina's new navigation tools, gifted to her by Captain Blackwater in recognition of her expertise, included a professional sextant, a collection of the finest charts available in the Caribbean, and a compass that had been specially calibrated by the best instrument makers in Port Royal. These tools, combined with Captain Goldbeard's ancient knowledge and Guardian's remarkable instincts, made her one of the most effective treasure hunters in the region. "The old maps show the ships going down here," Captain Rodriguez explained, pointing to a section of reef-scattered water off Tortuga's north coast. "But my divers have found nothing after weeks of searching." Marina studied the Spanish charts carefully, comparing them with Captain Goldbeard's notes about ocean currents and storm patterns. Guardian sat beside her, occasionally placing his paw on specific sections of the maps, as if he could sense something important about those locations. The hurricane would have pushed the ships much farther than these charts suggest, Marina concluded, after careful analysis, and the currents here flow toward the deeper waters where the Spanish captains would have tried to ride out the storm. Using her new navigational instruments and Guardian's intuitive guidance, Marina led the combined expedition to a section of ocean that the Spanish maps didn't even show. When the divers finally found the wreckage, it was exactly where her calculations had predicted, scattered across an underwater plateau that had caught the ships as they sank. The recovered treasure was substantial but not overwhelming, and Marina insisted that it be shared not only among the crews that had discovered it, but also with the local population of Tortuga, who had provided assistance and hospitality during the search. Treasure hunting isn't just about finding gold, Marina explained to Captain Rodriguez as they watched the distribution of the recovered artifacts. It's about understanding the stories these treasures tell and making sure that those stories are shared with people who can appreciate their importance. Guardian had proven to be as valuable on sea expeditions as he had been on land. His ability to sense changes in wind and weather had saved them from 2 potentially dangerous storms, and his instincts about dangerous waters had guided them away from several treacherous reefs that weren't marked on any charts. "That dog is worth his weight in gold," Captain Rodriguez declared after Guardian had alerted them to a dangerous current that could have driven their ships onto hidden rocks. "He's got the instincts of a sailor who's been at sea for 50 years. Word of Marina and Guardian's success reached other pirate crews, and soon they were receiving invitations to participate in expeditions throughout the Caribbean. Each adventure brought new challenges and discoveries, but also new friendships and alliances that were strengthening the bonds between different pirate communities. Marina found that her approach to treasure hunting was changing the way pirates thought about their profession. Instead of simply raiding and stealing, many crews were becoming interested in the historical and cultural significance of what they discovered. Some had even begun documenting their finds and sharing information with scholars and historians in various ports. "You're starting a revolution, little one," Torres told her one evening as they sailed between adventures. "Pirates have always been interested in treasure, but you're teaching them to be interested in knowledge and history as well." Guardian seemed to approve of their new role in the pirate community. His confidence had grown with each successful expedition, and he had developed a reputation among other crews as a dog who could find treasure that had been hidden for centuries. As they returned to familiar waters near their home port, Marina realized that her life had transformed completely from the curious child who had wandered into a jungle temple. She was now a respected member of the pirate community, a skilled navigator and treasure hunter, and most importantly, the trusted partner of the most remarkable dog in the Caribbean. Marina's reputation had grown so significantly that when she discovered an ancient compass of extraordinary properties on a small, uncharted island near Jamaica, word of the find spread like wildfire through the pirate community. The Golden Compass of Truth, as it came to be known, was unlike any navigational instrument anyone had ever seen. The compass was crafted from pure gold, with a crystal face that seemed to glow with inner light, and most remarkably, it pointed not toward magnetic north, but toward whatever the person holding it most needed to find. When Marina first picked it up from its resting place in an overgrown Arawak temple, the needle had spun wildly before settling on a direction that led them to a cache of fresh water during a drought that had been threatening their supplies. "It responds to pure intention," Marina explained to Captain Blackwater as they tested the compass's abilities. "If someone holds it while thinking clearly about what they truly need, not just what they want, but what they actually need, it guides them toward it." Guardian seemed particularly attuned to the compass's power. When he sat near Marina while she held it, the crystal face would pulse with brighter light, and the needle's movements became more precise and confident. It was as if the compass recognized Guardian's pure loyalty and used it to amplify its own mystical properties. Word of the Golden Compass of Truth reached pirates throughout the Caribbean, and soon Marina found herself inundated with requests for assistance. Unlike treasure hunters, who sought only gold and jewels, many of these pirates came to her with deeper needs, searching for lost family members, trying to find safe harbors during political upheavals, or seeking resolution to conflicts that had divided their crews. Captain Isabella Vega of the Storm Dancer arrived seeking help finding her brother, who had disappeared during a hurricane 3 years earlier. Using the golden compass of truth, Marina and Guardian guided the emotional reunion that took place on a small island where the brother had been living as a hermit, believing his ship and crew had all perished in the same storm. The success stories multiplied as Marina helped reunite families, locate lost treasures that held sentimental rather than monetary value, and guide pirates toward the kinds of adventures that fulfilled their deepest dreams rather than just filling their pockets with gold. "You're not just finding treasure anymore," Torres observed as they prepared for another expedition. "You're helping people find themselves." Guardian had developed an almost mystical reputation among the pirate community. Stories circulated of his ability to detect not just hidden treasures, but hidden truths about people's intentions and character. Pirates who had initially been skeptical about trusting a dog now sought his approval as a sign that their ventures were worthy and their intentions pure. Marina found that the golden compass of truth had taught her something important about the nature of treasure hunting. The most valuable discoveries weren't always the ones that could be measured in gold and silver, but the ones that helped people find what they were truly searching for in life. One particularly memorable expedition involved helping a young pirate named Thomas locate his grandfather's ship, which had been lost in a battle 20 years earlier. The golden compass led them not to the wreck itself, but to the survivor who had been carrying his grandfather's final letter for 2 decades, waiting for the right person to deliver it to. "The compass doesn't just find things," Marina explained to Thomas as he read his grandfather's letter with tears in his eyes. "It finds connections, meanings, and the missing pieces that make our stories complete." Guardian's role in these expeditions had evolved as well. He had become not just a treasure-hunting partner, but a judge of character, who could sense when people's stated goals aligned with their true intentions. Pirates learned to watch Guardian's reactions when meeting new crews or considering new partnerships, trusting his instincts to guide them toward honorable alliances. The golden compass of truth had also revealed something unexpected about Guardian himself. When Marina held the compass while thinking about Guardian's greatest need, the needle pointed consistently toward the sea, not toward any specific destination, but toward the endless possibility of new adventures and discoveries. "You're meant to be exploring, aren't you?" Marina said to Guardian one evening, as they watched the sunset from the deck of the Sea Serpent. "You're not just Captain Goldbeard's guardian anymore. You're an explorer in your own right, with your own destiny to fulfill." Guardian's tail wagged as he looked toward the horizon, and Marina realized that their partnership had evolved into something even deeper than what he had shared with Captain Goldbeard. They were creating their own legend, writing their own chapter in the great book of Caribbean adventure. A year after discovering Captain Goldbeard's treasure, Marina and Guardian returned to Serpent's Isle with a purpose that went far beyond treasure hunting. The island had become sacred to them, the place where their partnership had begun and where Captain Goldbeard's legacy continued to unfold through their adventures. Marina had spent weeks planning what she wanted to create on the island, a memorial that would honor not just Captain Goldbeard, but all the pirates who had lived and died pursuing dreams of adventure and discovery. The memorial stone she envisioned would serve as a beacon for future generations of treasure hunters, a reminder that the greatest treasures were often the friendships and loyalties forged during the search. "Search, this feels right," Captain Blackwater said, as their ship anchored in the familiar cove. "Goldbeard would approve of what you're planning." The memorial stone was crafted from the same type of granite as the temple itself, carved with symbols that told the story of Captain Goldbeard's life and adventure. Marina had worked with skilled stonemasons in Port Royal to ensure that every detail was perfect, from the rendering of Guardian's likeness to the intricate maritime symbols that decorated the borders. But the memorial was only part of Marina's vision for Serpent's Isle. She had also decided to establish the island as a sanctuary for abandoned and lost dogs, a place where animals like Guardian could find safety and purpose while waiting for their own adventures to begin. Every pirate ship needs a good dog, Marina explained to Torres as they supervised the construction of comfortable shelters near the temple. And every dog deserves the chance to be part of something important. Guardian had thrown himself into the sanctuary project with enthusiasm that reminded Marina of his dedication to protecting Captain Goldbeard's treasure. He seemed to understand that this new mission was an extension of his old one, protecting and nurturing something precious for future generations. During their stay on the island, Marina discovered that Guardian had a remarkable talent for training other dogs in the skills that made him such an exceptional ship's companion. His lessons covered everything from reading weather signs to detecting dangerous currents, from identifying trustworthy humans to finding hidden passages in unfamiliar buildings. He's teaching them to be partners, not just pets, Marina observed as she watched Guardian work with a young retriever that had been rescued from a sinking merchant vessel. Just like Captain Goldbeard taught him, the sanctuary quickly attracted attention from pirates throughout the Caribbean. Word spread that Serpent's Isle had become a place where crews could find exceptional canine companions, dogs that had been trained not just in basic obedience, but in the specialized skills that made the difference between a good ship and a great one. Captain Rodriguez returned with his crew specifically to adopt a dog from the sanctuary, bringing with him stories of how Guardian's training methods had been shared with other crews and were revolutionizing the relationship between pirates and their animal companions. These aren't just ship's dogs, Captain Rodriguez said, as he watched a group of young dogs practicing formation sailing techniques with Guardian's guidance. Their crew members, with specialized skills. Marina spent several weeks documenting everything they had learned about treasure hunting, navigation and dog training, creating a comprehensive guide that could be shared with future generations of pirates and adventurers. As the book included detailed maps of their discoveries, descriptions of the various artifacts they had found, and most importantly, the philosophical principles that Captain Goldbeard had outlined in his letter. Someone else might find this useful someday, Marina said as she worked on the final chapters of her guide. Someone who needs to know that the best adventures are the ones where you help others along the way. As they prepared to leave Serpent's Isle and return to their life of adventure, Marina and Guardian conducted a ceremony at the completed memorial stone. The inscription read, "In memory of Captain William Goldbeard Harrison and all pirates who understood that the greatest treasures are found not in gold, but in the loyalty of true friends and the courage to explore the unknown." The memorial stone stood in a clearing near the temple, visible from the sea, but protected by the jungle's natural cathedral. Guardian sat beside the stone with the dignity of an honor guard, his presence ensuring that Captain Goldbeard's memory would be protected for generations to come. "This is where it all started," Marina said, placing her hand on Guardian's head as they prepared to return to the Sea Serpent. "But it's not where our story ends, it's where new stories begin." As their ship sailed away from Serpent's Isle for the second time, Marina knew that they had created something that would outlast any treasure they might discover, a legacy of compassion, loyalty, and the understanding that true wealth came from the connections forged between kindred spirits seeking adventure together. 2 years had passed since Marina first wandered into that jungle temple and discovered Guardian waiting patiently among the ancient stone. Now, as she stood at the bow of the Sea Serpent watching the sunrise paint the Caribbean waters in shades of gold and amber, she reflected on how completely her life had transformed from that single moment of curiosity. The eternal bond medallion hanging around her neck caught the morning light, its surface gleaming with the same warm radiance that had first drawn her to the temple's mysterious carving. Marina had crafted the medallion herself from gold taken from Captain Goldbeard's treasure, creating a symbol that represented not ownership, but partnership, the unbreakable connection between two souls who had chosen to face the world's adventures together. Guardian wore a matching medallion on his collar, and together the pendant served as a reminder to everyone they met that their friendship transcended the normal boundaries between human and animal. They were partners in the truest sense, equals in courage, wisdom, and the endless pursuit of discovery. "Marina," Captain Blackwater called from the helm, "we're approaching the coordinates you marked. Are you ready for this?" She nodded, checking the golden compass of truth one final time before tucking it safely into her navigator's pouch. Today's expedition would take them to an uncharted island that Guardian had sensed during their last voyage, a place where the compass suggested they would find something significant, though neither of them knew exactly what. The island appeared on the horizon like a green jewel set in blue silk, its coastline fringed with white sand beaches and its interior crowned with mist-wreathed peaks. As they approached, Marina could see the telltale signs that had become familiar to her expert eye: unusual rock formations that suggested ancient construction, vegetation patterns that indicated fresh water sources, and most intriguingly, birds circling in formations that often marked the presence of hidden structures. There, Guardian barked softly, his nose pointing toward a section of beach where a small stream emerged from the jungle. His instincts had guided them to countless Tzevries over the past 2 years, and Marina had learned to trust his judgment completely. As they established their landing camp, Marina felt the familiar thrill of approaching mystery. Every new island held the possibility of adding another chapter to the great story of Caribbean exploration, another thread in the tapestry of adventure that she and Guardian were weaving together. "You know what I love most about this," Torres said, as he helped Marina organize her exploration equipment. "2 years ago, you were just a curious little girl. Now you're teaching all of us to see the world with the eyes of a true explorer." Guardian had grown as well, his confidence and skills expanding with each adventure they shared. He was no longer just Captain Goldbeard's faithful guardian, but a legend in his own right, the dog who could find treasures that had been lost for centuries, who could sense the approach of storms days before they appeared on the horizon, and who could judge the character of a person with uncanny accuracy. "Ready, Guardian?" Marina asked, shouldering her pack and checking that Captain Goldbeard's cutlass was secure at her side. The legendary weapon had become as much a part of her identity as her navigator's tools, a symbol of the legacy she had inherited and the responsibility she carried to use her abilities wisely. Guardian's tail wagged with the same enthusiasm he had shown during their very first exploration of the temple. Age and experience had made him wiser, but they had not dimmed the spark of curiosity that had originally drawn him to trust a small pirate girl with his most precious secret. As they set off into the jungle together, Marina thought about all the young pirates who looked up to her now, all the crews who sought their assistance with their own treasure hunts, and all the stories that were being told in taverns throughout the Caribbean about the little girl and her remarkable dog, who had discovered Captain Goldbeard's treasure and gone on to find wonders that surpassed even that legendary hoard. But what mattered most to Marina was not the fame or the treasure, or even the adventures themselves. What mattered was the warm weight of Guardian pressed against her side as they walked, the absolute trust in his amber eyes when he looked at her, and the knowledge that whatever they discovered on this new island, they would discover it together. "Come on, old friend," Marina said, scratching behind Guardian's ears as they approached the jungle's green embrace. "Let's see what mysteries this island has been saving for us." Together, they stepped into the shadows of the unknown, ready for whatever adventure awaited them beyond the trees.